Greetings, Arts Beatniks. It's the KC Arts Beat Report. I'm Patrick Neas. And today we're going to be talking with the artistic director of one of the best choral ensembles in Kansas City. I heard them perform last fall in a concert that just blew me away. They did the music of Salomone Rossi and Monteverdi and Bach, and also music by an English composer. And that is the next concert on their agenda, devoted entirely to this composer, considered by many not only the first great English composer, but also perhaps the greatest English composer of all time. But before we get to that, I'd like to ask you to please subscribe to the KC Artsbeat YouTube channel, follow us on Facebook, subscribe to our Substack page. We'd really appreciate it. But right now it's time to say hello to Jay Carter, who is artistic director, one of the artistic directors of Musico Vocale here in Kansas City. And Jay, first of all, I have to say what a wonderful musical lineage your group has, because really its roots are with one of Kansas City's legendary choral directors, Arnold Epley, right?
That's absolutely correct. A number of years ago, Arnold stepped down from doing the Kansas City Symphony Chorus and said, I have so much I still want to do and to be doing." And the ensemble was an outgrowth of that desire and a desire of a number of us to say we want to continue to work with Arnold in a capacity like we're in right now, where we get to do things that nobody else is really going to do, and it's been a joy. We are in our, I think, 17th season. Obviously, COVID made the numbering of seasons a little bit tricky to figure out, but we are pressing ahead. I'm one of the two artistic directors for it. I share those responsibilities with Ryan Olson. And Arnold is our artistic advisor and is present at darn near every rehearsal, and is remains heavily involved in what we do, and we're the better for it for sure. But we're a happy ensemble of people who like to get to do the work that we're getting to do.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, you're going to do a concert. I didn't mention when or where. It's going to be Sunday, March 29th at Grace and Holy Trinity Cathedral. It's called Hail, Bright Cecilia, a Purcellian Feast. All music by one of my favorite composers, Henry Purcell. What a great idea to do a whole concert of his music. And he certainly wrote enough for a concert and many more, didn't he?
Yeah, it's Purcell's music is kind of remarkable because there's such a variety of it. There's opera, these odes that were written for court and for public performances, church music, uh, anthems. There's just so much musical material, and for me, the real shock is that he managed to write all of this exceptional work in a very short number of years. He died at 36. But it does help that he kind of began his career at the age of 7 as a singer in Charles II's Chapel Royal. So he started early, and unfortunately, he finished way too early. But what we do have is exceptional music and some of the best writing of English text into a musical form that anybody could have ever done.
And hugely influential on later English composers as well. You know,
Yeah.
you mentioned his death at 36. I don't know if it's apocryphal or not, but I read this story. You can correct me if I'm wrong, that he caught a cold by waiting outside his house in the rain because his wife was mad at him for staying out late.
That is one of there are several thoughts about that, and that's one of them, and that's kind of the one I kind of prescribe to. Someone else noted that he may have been poisoned by chocolate. That there was in the manufacturing of chocolate there was lead
Hmm.
involved, and he may have somehow ingested a terminal amount.
Oh,
Purcell, like a lot of the Restoration era members of the establishment, was a legendary gourmand and a hard drinker, as people tended to be on the other side of the restoration of the monarchy. And we know that because he also wrote a number of drinking songs, some of
yes.
which have lyrics that still make us blush today,
Yes.
if you read them. So he was not just some sacred choir guy. He lived a full life and was a real human being. There's no
I,
doubt about it.
I hope I can say this. It's my show, so I feel like I can.
Yeah.
Didn't he write a song called Johnny Cock Thy Beaver?
Yes, he did. He wrote
Yes.
several, and that's one of the tame ones.
Yes, and that's one of the same ones.
Yeah, there are a number of them where the joke or the off-color stuff doesn't even pop up until all the parts enter. Some of them are written as rounds, and when the third part comes in, you hear the interplay of text between the voices, and they are absolutely ribald as can be. It's amazing.
Now, your program is totally family friendly, we
That
must
is correct. Yes, we're not doing any of those tavern songs or drinking songs, which is good. We are G-rated for this concert, which is probably good for everyone.
say.
Um, there are four pieces on the program, three of which are pieces with choir. There is an organ voluntary that we're putting in there. That's one of the few examples of organ repertoire by Purcell that survive. Most of his organ stuff was improvised and never written down. So the 12 or so pieces we have are they're absolute bangers, amazing pieces. And so we've got one of those in the middle of the St. Cecilia's Day Ode that we're doing. The Hail Bright Cecilia is about a 35-minute work that is a little tasting menu all about the power of music and various instruments and what emotions they evoke, and then references Saint Cecilia, the patroness saint of music. So that's kind of the body of the program in the middle. And then we're starting that with a pre-dinner drink in the anthem "I Was Glad," written by Purcell for the coronation of James II in 1685, and then we're finishing with one of the symphony anthems that he wrote for the Chapel Royal of Charles II, called "Rejoice in the Lord Always," which is probably his most famous of those symphony anthems. He wrote dozens and dozens of them, and the Chapel Royal was the only place that had instrumentalists at that point. So it was a very opulent thing to do. And it influenced later on folks like Handel coming to write for the Chapel Royal, and other folks even emulated it that were wealthy people as well. They said, well, if the king can do it, we ought to do it too. So people like the Earl of Chandos, James Bridges, that Handel wrote the Chandos anthems for, they're kind of inspired by that same tradition of sacred music with strings.
Uh-huh.
So it's a veritable cross section of Purcell's music, with the exception of the drinking songs.
Yes.
And it is
And theater music too. He wrote a ton.
yeah, tons. I mean, there was a period of time when the crown wasn't willing to spend quite so much money on music at the court, and so Purcell and many of his colleagues began finding gainful employment in the theater, and that may have contributed to his decline of sleeping outside in a drunken evening, coming home from the theater late, but going out for a drink with his friends afterward. There's a life lesson in there for all of us, I think.
Yes, indeed. It's just amazing how much music he crammed into such a short life.
Yeah,
Uh, now, he was pre-Bach and Handel.
that's right.
Who were his contemporaries on the continent? And was
Yeah,
there any interaction between them?
well, it's funny. He has the lucky set of circumstances to be born into England at a time where there's all of this pent up want for music and art and theater after a period of Puritan nothingness for about a little over a decade, and a decade of war before that. And when the Puritans take over, there's not really much of anything happening in England at all. And when the monarchy is restored in 1660, uh, King Charles II has been in exile in France, particularly at the court of Louis XIV. So he's interacting with composers like Lully, all of those French guys. So when he becomes king, that's what he wants to create back in his court in London. So he is spending money hand over fist to send these generations of composers overseas to study, particularly with the French composers at Louis's court. Purcell is not one of them. He's actually an infant at the time, but his direct teachers in his earliest years, Pelham Humphreys and Cook, Henry Cook, who was a major musician that was from before the Civil Wars. He sends them over to spend some time at the court absorbing it. So he learns the French style secondhand through them, and very thoroughly, and right away. He writes his first piece, we think, at about the age of 9, and the first surviving piece that we have from him is from his 11th year, and it's a piece written for the king's birthday, and it is very French. It sounds like a piece of Charpentier or Lully, It's a remarkable piece. So he's importing all of these continental styles, but he's getting it through his education more than anything else. But he's not traveling there. As far as we know, he didn't ever leave the kingdom.
Well, when I listen to his music, it certainly sounds distinctive,
Yeah,
unlike any other Baroque music, and that includes, to my ears anyway, French composers. But
yeah.
maybe you could tell me what it is about his music that shows that French influence.
A part of it, I think, has to do with text declamation. Even though the languages are obviously very different, there are these principles in French sung drama, especially in that period, that become a part of the way that Purcell is taught to make theater music. And he takes that ball and runs it down the field as far as anybody can, with lots of repetition that has meaningful repetition engineered into it, changes of harmony, large expressive chromatic leaps. It's very Technicolor music right out of the gate. You'll walk out with a good tune every now and then, but there are also these wild, chatty patterns back and forth and really expressive music. I remember the first time I heard some of Purcell's music, I didn't understand quite what I was hearing. I thought it sounds so calm, and then all of a sudden I'm on edge and I don't know why.
Uh,
It's part of the way he uses harmony as well.
his
Um,
music also has, to my ear, I'm sure this isn't unique, a very distinctive Englishy sound.
Yeah, there is something engineered, and I think they didn't completely abandon the English musical principles in 1660 and just wholesale import the French way of doing things. They more or less took the techniques and adapted them to music that they had from the 1640s and before. So Tallis, Byrd, Gibbons, all of those Tudor and Jacobean folks that are still a part, especially of Anglican liturgy. Um, they're hearkening back to that, but they're taking it and retrofitting it with some of those French influences, like the instruments, like the rolling dance rhythms, and all of those sorts of things that are imported, and it makes something that is uniquely its own thing, and it's the thing that Handel absorbs in the first couple of years that he's in London, and I think part of what makes Handel's English oratorios feel the way that they do. It's
Oh,
that
interesting.
same adaptation of things. And there's not that much time that separates Purcell and Handel. Some
Uh-huh.
of the same musicians are still there in 1707 when Handel shows up for the first time.
Uh-huh.
Um, if Purcell had lived another decade, we are certain he would have interacted with Handel. And he could have possibly, lived another 30 years or so.
Yeah.
It would have been amazing to have seen what London's musical life would have been like if they'd been in the same place at the same time.
Since you mentioned that French influence, something that does pop into my mind now is that in Handel's, I don't know if you'd call them or operas, King Arthur and the
Yeah,
Warrior Queen,
yeah,
he has these masks, sort of
yeah,
these dance interludes. That
yeah.
seems very French to me, like
And
something you would hear in a
that's a
Rameau
French
opera.
thing. And all that music written for Louis, even some of the sacred music written for like the chapel of the king, they would come to the end of a verse in a psalm or something like that, and then they would put in a 3 minute dance piece, and then they would go back and then render the rest of the text. So the incorporation of dance is a huge part of it, and it's there in all of Purcell's music. The dance is always happening somewhere in the background.
And unique kind of Englishy dances like jigs and
Yeah.
hornpipes and
They're all there. And they become the provenance of people like Handel later on, and they even get exported back to the continent. I mean, Bach is writing jigs later on. Beethoven is taking English and Scottish folk songs and arranging them. Haydn's doing the same thing. So it's
Alamans, right?
yeah, I mean, there are all these back and
Wow.
forth
Yeah, so
cross-pollinations.
interesting.
And
I mean, you
Bristol's
know,
kind of one of the places where it really begins.
and speaking of Handel, after I understand after Purcell died, they performed his Te Deum every year. I forget for what the occasion was. And then
Yeah.
after Handel died, they started to alternate Purcell
Yeah.
and Handel's Te Deums.
Yeah, there was the Utrecht Te Deum and the Dettinger Te Deum, and then Purcell's Te Deum in D that was actually written the year after the St. Cecilia's Day Ode that we're doing. And it was part of the St. Cecilia's Festival on November 22nd for a number of years. And I think they also used to sing them if there was a particular military victory or a celebratory event. They'd often haul out one of those D major Te Deums with trumpets and timpani and the full retinue of all of the choirs and orchestral members. It's exciting music, and
Well,
there's some of that in the pieces that we're doing too. It's a complete buffet of those styles.
I was going to say, just looking at the titles of the pieces you're doing, it sort of seems like there's this joyous quality to the program. Is that
Yeah.
true?
Yeah, that's very true. And I'm one of those people. I'm generally more attracted to music that's slow and somber and reflective, and I don't always do well with trumpets and hallelujahs. But there are places and times and composers who really do that in a way that feels genuine. And Purcell is one of those folks that really there's something so jubilant about that music and optimistic about that music that for me right now is a particularly needed thing in my life. So
I
it
think
seems like a good time for that.
we could all use some trumpets and hallelujahs about now. That's for
Yeah,
sure.
it seems like a really good time for it. And there's also the fact that it's just delightfully fun music too. It's some of it still is grave and somber and serious and beautiful and mournful, but it's also perfectly meted with all the happy stuff too. It's a good cocktail.
Well, if anybody who could write Johnny Cock Thy Beaver has to have a good sense of humor. So,
One would think it would, there'd be a certain degree of a smile on someone's face writing that. So, and it comes across in the music too. I mean, it's there's a delightful wit and an intellect there that we can only guess at, but man, you have to assume it's there from what you hear and what you get to sing and play.
and what a perfect venue for Purcell's music. I'm sure you chose it for that reason. Great
Yeah, we
lighting.
we thought long and hard about where to put this concert, and we try to make sure that we do things in spaces that people don't know as well, or where the music is a perfect fit. And there's a beautiful stained glass window at Grace and Holy Trinity Cathedral I think it's on the right-hand side of the nave. That's a Saint Cecilia window, and then there's another one right next to it that's a picture of David playing the harp.
Mm.
And they're such striking images that it seemed like it would be such a good fit, along with just the Englishness of the space and all of those sorts of things rolled together. And it's being in that room will be quite wonderful for this concert. And we also need the space. It's a
Well,
dog and pony show. We've got all the choir, but we've also got the orchestral folks too, and it's going to take some room.
okay. Can you tell us how many members are in your choir? Because I tell you, you guys really crank out the sound.
Yeah, our members, a lot of them are church musicians, music teachers, some folks that have moved into other fields but have serious musical chops from their undergrad. We have a cross section of people and young emergent pros. We range between 25 and 30 people, depending on projects and time of year and people's schedules and things like that. But most of us come from programs where we were really taught to sing and it we make a tremendous racket with our small merry band, which is a lot of fun, especially for this music. We're going to be joined by our friends at the Baroque Consortium
Mm.
with a number of instrumentalists that will augment, especially in the large St. Cecilia's Day ode that we're doing. But it will be our normal group of string players that we're fortunate to have local to us in Kansas City. But we're going to be augmented by a number of guests from out of town who play instruments that we need that we don't have local players that play the period instruments. So we've got Baroque bassoon, two Baroque oboes, two recorders, theorbo, which is a giant plucked lute, um, two Baroque trumpets, and Baroque timpani. So it's like I said, it really is a dog and pony show. Everybody,
Yes.
and the ode gives everybody a chance to be a soloist at some point. So you will hear from every single instrument, usually with text that talks about what the instrument sounds like and what emotional response the instrument evokes in a person. It's a terrific piece. I don't think it's ever been performed in Kansas City in its entirety. And one of the great joys is being able to take things that we think ought to be done and to do them so
Uh-huh.
that Kansas City audiences have a chance to hear them and Kansas City musicians have a chance to experience them from the inside. That's part
Well,
of our mandate.
it's a wonderful mandate, and It's unbelievable you can make this available for free. How are you able to do that?
Yeah, well, we have a number of generous donors, including John Brom and Wade Alexander, who have underwritten this concert to make it free to anyone who would like to attend. Now, of course, we would certainly be happy for any donations. Those don't cover all of the costs, and we have a number of donors who help us with that mission. But we want to make sure that people come to our concerts if they want to come. We don't want there to be a barrier of entry for anyone for that.
Can people make donations through your website?
Yeah, through the website and there on the site at the concert too. And we're always happy if someone wants to be a patron to find a way to do that. We're also a pretty spendthrift organization. We watch what we do very carefully, and we try to make sure that any funds that we spend are being well spent. Part of that comes from just being thrifty, I think, but also trying to just be mindful of people who have invested something in us. Let's try to make sure that we're good stewards of that. And part of that is also every member of our ensemble does participate in some way with a small gift. Some people can give very little, some people can give deeply, but we're just something. It really helps, and it really is a community feel to what we do, which makes us happy.
What's your website?
Musicavocale.org, musicavocale.org, or you can just look us up online. We're generally going to pop up in the search engines pretty quickly, and we are always happy to. We also have all of our past programs and past concerts are there. So if people want to look and see what we've been doing in the past, we put all that information up and out there for free. So we hope people can make use of it.
So if you want to help support music in Kansas City, one of the best groups we have here, go to musicavocale.org. You'll have all the information you need for all their concerts, and you'll be able to help them out financially too. Again, the concert is Hail, Bright Cecilia, a Purcellian feast at Grace and Holy Trinity Cathedral, Sunday, March 29th at 3 p.m. Jay Carter, and by the way, Jay, I didn't even mention what a fantastic countertenor you are. And I know that Purcell wrote a lot of great music for countertenor, didn't he?
Yes. Yeah, and in fact, it was kind of my gateway into singing countertenor parts. Were these Purcell pieces that were written for male alto, and I kept looking at them. I said, "These are fascinating, and they're more fun than I should probably be having. Surely I'm doing something wrong." And it went from something that I fiddled around with a little bit as a younger undergraduate to something that I find myself doing. And most years I've got some Purcell on my docket of things that I get to do as a soloist with other groups, including this piece. I think I last did it in Houston with Ars Lyrica as a soloist last season, 2 seasons ago. And it pops up every few years along with other Purcell things and the standard complement of messiahs and Bach cantatas and B minors. But I'm always bowled over when I get to do Purcell. I can't think of any composer who sets English any better than Purcell does.
Well, yeah, I'm sure your love for this music and the love that your choir has for it is going to overflow
We
on
are
March
terribly
29th.
excited. Yeah.
March 29th, 3 p.m., Grace Only Trinity Cathedral, absolutely free.
Yeah.
Jay, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. You're such a wealth of information, and I just love your enthusiasm for what you do. And
Oh,
thank you
thank
so
you.
much to you and everybody involved with Musica Vocale for providing such exquisite music to Kansas City for free. It's unbelievable, but we really appreciate it.
And thank you for your work too. And thank
Oh,
you to your listeners.
thank you, Jay. I'm Patrick Neas, and until next time, this is the KC Artsbeat Report. Don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube, subscribe to our Substack page, and follow us on Facebook. Take care.